Hello, welcome back. In the previous section, we looked at relationships and we also saw views. We went ahead and mapped our video relationship with a poster, which happens to be people, and we have a many to one type of relationship. Now, in this video, like I stated towards the end of that section, I said we're going to be looking at pipelines, right? How leads move from being open or being new at contacted stage to being either converted or lost, and we are going to be looking at all of that right now. So for the start, we are going to be creating a custom object. So right now I have a template we are going to be making use of. So you can say cheese and take a screenshot of this, and then just fill it out yourself. I don't want to bore you with the old nuances. All right, before you get started with filling out the lead, you'll discover that we have a person, or I'll say a people object right here. So you are going to have a relationship of a lead or the people. So you determine that relationship yourself, and then you can create this lead object yourself, then come back and compare with what I'll be doing. And for the professional info, we have the company, we have the job title, and these as well are already in the people object. So you can just think about it. Now for the tracking, we're going to be looking at how to come up with status, ownership, conversion, and timestamp. So I just like drafted this out. So right now, let's jump right into it. First thing first is to move right here, and we're going to create this custom object. Now the first is to provide the name of this custom object, which happens to be our lead. The singular version will be lead, and we simply go ahead and create the object. For the attribute, by default we have 5 attributes: record ID, list entries, next, due tax, created at, and created by. Now I'll go ahead and include the other attributes, and let's start with the people attribute, right? So we're gonna have person as the name of this attribute, and it's going to be a required field. So default value, we can add that. So we'll simply go ahead and now specify the type. So we are going to have a relationship, and we are not going to be having a one-to-one type of relationship. We're going to having something similar to what we had in the previous section. So we're going to be having many leads to one person, right? So this should be it. And yeah, right here we're going to have leads, and finally we simply create our attribute. Now the next is the status, right? So we want to change from test to status, and we are right now we're going to input our status. We're going to be starting with open, and the next would be contacted. We're going to followed by qualified, unqualified. It's a couple of stages, and we're gonna have converted, and then finally we are gonna have lost, and that will simply just be the different stage we'll be having for this. I think we have about 6 different stages, and we can see that some overlaps. For instance, when the lead is first created, it is opened, and if a follow-up has been made on that lead, is simply contacted. We can have like a range of value for that lead that determines if it is qualified or unqualified. If it's unqualified, it means from the very onset that lead is lost. And if a lead has been contacted and it's converted, then we go ahead and create a deal. But if a lead is contacted and there's no response back, it's simply lost, right? So these are the different stages we've created, and by default this is required. So we're going to set a default stage. The default stage would be open, right? And we simply go ahead and create this attribute. So what do we have next is the updated attribute. So we're going to have that updated and this would be of type timestamp, right? So we want to use timestamp and not date. So let's go with timestamp, and the time it's recently updated. So it's gonna be all right without no default value, and we simply create this attributes again. Now what most firms do is once a lead has been converted to a deal, it's simply deleted from the system. What we want to do with this particular tutorial is we want to keep track of the leads that converts over to a deal, and we want to keep track of them so we are not deleting them. So we are going to have a couple of these feeds that will help us know which leads turn around to be a specific type of lead. So we want to keep track of those as well. So we're going to create this attribute again. Sorry, we're going to create another attribute, and this time we are going to call it is converted. Right, by default this would be false and the type would be of boolean. Okay, so I'll explain what boolean value means. So we have checkbox state rating, and right here we do not have a boolean option. So boolean is like a true or false value, 1 or 0. In this case we are going to make use of a select. Right, we're going to create the first option true, then we're going to create another option false. So it's converted can be either true or false, so we have to choose an option from both. So we're going to have the default value. So when a lead is first created, this is open, so that its converted field will be false. So we are not going to have a camel casing for the name, pardon me. We're going to have is converted instead, or we can just simply call it converted. Converted can be either true or false if it has been converted to the right, and it's required. All right, so it's a required constraint, and we simply create this attribute. All right, and the next one is the date at which it was converted. All right, so we are going to go ahead and create this attribute converted at. It shouldn't be required field, so we're going to have timestamp, and then we simply create this attribute. So that is all for the creation of our leads. I want to move back to our objects. We'll go ahead and create our first lead. Now, to make this very, very simple, we will create this lead using our AI agent. So this will be the first time we're using our AI agent to create any object as is. So right now I'm going to say, help me create a lead. So the prompt is very simple. I'm saying, help me create a lead for the workspace using a selected person at random to create this lead. All right, so I will simply hand its task over to the agent, and let's see what it's going to do for us. All right, you can see the value. It has prompted a couple of things for us. So we have the person, we have Aaron, we have status as open, which should be the default, and converted for now is false. Right, so what I'll just do is just click on create, and we are going to have the lead created. Right, so a new lead has been created. I randomly selected Aaron Coley from customer.io, and here's the new record. Right, so we want to click on it. It's going to take us to our lead page. Now, just like we did with our previous view, right? So right now we do not have any view for leads. Just like we did with videos, we're going to be doing the same for leads as well. So we click on to have a table view, and we just simply call it lead list, or we can just call it leads and confirm. Right, and right now we still have the record ID, which happens to be the test, as what is being viewed. So we can go ahead and add column. We can simply use created ads, add another column, which should be status of the lead. Then we go ahead, add another one, the person, the name. I want to specify the full name. We can also change the way our lead is being presented to us. So move over to this section. We want to edit it, and appearance, we want to change the record test to another attribute, right? So let's choose an attribute. Oops, not here. Okay, there's something I'm missing out on, so let's move back to settings, over to the spots, and attributes, unique. All right, required, and appearances. All right, the reason is because by default the record makes use of like the test type for the record ID. So we're going to create one extra feed. All right, so we're going to have this feed which we call lead title, right? So it's going to be a test, and it's going to be required, right? And we simply go ahead and create this attribute. Now that we've created it, we can go over to appearances. We want to choose a test attribute. Now it has appeared, so we'll click on lead title, and that would be it. So we move back to our list of records for leads, And right now we still have the ID simply because we do not have the lead title for this particular lead. And just to make things a little bit more fancy, we can say update our lead person, a new title to the lead. All right, so you can see it has prompted us with a new value. So I'm gonna call it Aaron Cooley new lead just to keep it very simple and attach the first name to it. So I'll simply click on update, right? And so when I move back to our leads, we see the list, we can see Aaron Cooley new lead, and we can simply add a new column which we want to look at the updated out, and this feed is kind of blank. So by default, we'll have to set it ourselves manually whenever we update the feed. All right. So in the workflow section, we're going to be looking at how to automatically do this. Then we can, look at it. So stay tuned for that section. Right now, I'm going to take out this column. So I want to hide from view. Then we will have to move over to these. And right now we do not have any deal. But for the leads, our lead is here. And we can also create a new view, which would be Kanban. And we just call this view lead stages. And the attribute will be the status attributes that we have. All right, so we'll click on confirm. And I think I missed the naming convention here in the case of status because it's not in uppercase. Pardon me for that. And now we can simply move our Aaron Cooley leads after we send the first mail, probably on a day we set as a follow-up to contacted. And if there's a response and if the response is positive, we move over to qualified. And if after a period or two, we can move over to converted or lost. And it depends on a specific field which I'll be adding to the lead, which happens to be the price or the expected value to get in terms of services being offered, like a threshold. So if it's above a specific amount, it becomes qualified by default. Or if it's below a specific amount when the lead is newly created, it's unqualified. We're going to look at how to use a workflow to come about that in the coming section. And that is that for leads. And we can directly convert these leads to these. We're going to be using a workflow for that. Stay tuned, and we're going to be seeing it in the next section. Now this is like a pipeline, so I can call our lead stage, like I can edit the name, simply rename, and I'll call it a lead pipeline, right? But in generic, the whole pipeline flow is we have a new lead and it comes and pass through a couple of stages, and the next stage in the pipeline is to move over to the days after it is being converted. All right. Thank you. And until the next one, keep being your best self. Peace out.